Hi everybody, it is time for chapter 9, The Cave. Here we go. Ellen read the list they had written. Number 1, plants. 2, decorations. 3, lights. 4, more lights. How are we supposed to get these things? Ellen sat at the top of a golden sand dune, feeling the grasses with her hand. We can't steal stuff or dig plants up on the island. Rowan sifted sand through his fingers and watched it trickle onto his leg. Captain Beaky threw up bits of sand with his webbed feet. Well, we'll have to ask for help, Ellen. Duh, I don't know anyone here in case you hadn't noticed. Besides, people are nosy. They want to know everything about everyone. Nerys told me. Well, we'll tell them we're doing a nice thing for your grandmother. We could be cleaning up the garden so that she can enjoy it in her old age. That'll impress people. Rowan carried on trickling sand, putting a stray ant to one side so that he wouldn't hurt it. Ellen chewed the inside of her cheek and thought it over. It's not a bad plan. It's the only plan we've got. Ellen thought of how much had happened since she first arrived in Aberglad. She thought about her trip with Nerys. She wondered when Nerys would leave Winkle Cottage to visit her. That's it! She snapped her fingers with excitement. Winkle Cottage has got loads of flowers in the garden. I bet Nerys would give us some. Excellent, Rowan agreed. I'll ask her when I go home. Ellen realised that Rowan had never mentioned his home before. She wondered how to approach the subject without seeming nosy. Do you live near Nerys then? She pretended to be more interested in plaiting the golden grasses together. Just around the corner. He threw the sand in his palm down and stood with his back to her. Even though he clearly didn't want to talk about it, Ellen went on. Why do you spend so much time here if you live there? She could see Rowan's frame stiffen. There's no one home much. Why? Ellen sometimes couldn't stop herself from asking questions. My parents just aren't interested, that's all. Are we going to get on with finding the gold? He picked up Captain Beaky and marched away from Ellen. She thought about her mum and dad again. They tried so hard to make things good for her. She wished she could give them a massive hug and apologise for being such a brat. Swallowing the lump in her throat, she called after Rowan. Wait for me then. When she caught up with him, his face was crimson and he avoided making eye contact. What are we going to do about lights? I don't have any money, do you? She asked. Of course I don't. Ellen recoiled at the nastiness in his voice. He saw her reaction and softened a little. It's okay, we'll make our own. Here, you can carry Captain Beaky. Come on. He led her towards the lighthouse and then down a steep, windy path to Smuggler's Rocks. The sea was so calm, it looked like a mirror for the clouds in the distance, and it had a silken sheen close up. Puffins landed on it, breaking its stillness with their orange-webbed feet and watching her with their beady black eyes. Look, Captain Beaky, that's what you're going to do when you're better. Ellen could have sworn that the puffin winked at her. She couldn't stop herself from laughing out loud. She hoped that she wouldn't one day find herself doing impressions of birds on crowded trains. The puffins floated out to sea as the water tugged and frothed against the jagged rocks. Look at this. Rowan showed her a rock pool full of anemones. She touched them gently and watched them recoil into blobs like jelly sweets. Water snails left trails at the bottom of the pool and tiny shrimp darted about. After a while, Ellen noticed how quiet it was and looked up from the underwater world. Rowan had disappeared. She shielded her eyes with her hands. Rowan? There was no answer. She called out loudly, Rowan, where are you? Her gaze skimmed the surface of the sea. Perhaps he had dived in for a swim. He was nowhere to be seen. Rowan? Ellen up and scrambled over the rocks to get a higher vantage point, scraping her leg on the barnacles. She was going to have to call out a lifeboat if she couldn't see him really soon. Her swimming was strong because she'd had lessons and practiced lots, but it might be hard if he'd been washed too far out. Panic spread through her body like wildfire. Balancing on the top of the highest rock, she yelled at the very top of her voice, "Rowan!" What's all the fuss about? His head popped up from a crevice in the cliff behind her. Where were you? Ellen tried not to show how afraid she'd been. She could feel her legs trembling and her breathing was out of control. Oh, did I scare you? Sorry. Rowan looked genuinely rueful. I brought you here to show you something. I just wanted to check it out first. Well, you could have warned me. Captain Beaky thought something had happened to you. Ellen was surprised by how upset she was. Oh, sorry, I didn't think. He examined a piece of rock closely. I'm not used to having friends. She forgave him at once. She wasn't used to having many friends either. It's okay. What did you want to show me? He beckoned her into a small cleft in the cliff. The low passageway in the rock opened up into a giant cave. Stalactites hung dripping from the ceiling and stalagmites grew up like fairy towers to meet them. Watch you don't fall in. Rowan took Captain Beaky and held Ellen's arm as she walked towards a huge hole in the cave's floor. It looked as if it went down for miles. Phew! Thanks for saving me. She wondered why Rowan was chuckling at her. Watch this. He took a pebble out of his pocket and threw it into the hole. Ellen waited to see how far down it would drop and gasped as it hit the centre of the hole and sent concentric ripples outwards. It wasn't a hole but a huge pool of water. The water reflected the ceiling of the cave so clearly that it looked as if it was an upside-down cavern in front of them. Ellen punched Rowan on the arm. I thought I was going to fall in, you idiot. You might have just got very wet. He howled with laughter. It echoed around the cave, sounding as though there were 20 Rowans enjoying the joke. Captain Beaky made a low, growling noise that was somewhere between a chainsaw and a cow mooing. Ellen laughed. That's all very well, but it isn't helping us to find the treasure. That's where you're wrong. Just you wait. He disappeared out of the cave, leaving Ellen standing in the dim light alone. She tried not to think about the ghosts of drowned pirates who might be hidden at the bottom of the pool. It was quite echoey and lonely down here. There were different paths leading off in various directions. Ellen peered into the seemingly never-ending blackness and imagined a labyrinth just out of sight where a person might lose their way forever if they took the wrong turn. The sea might gush in and fill the cave to its roof. Thankfully, Rowan reappeared. Give it a minute till the sun hits the right place. They waited, listening to the sound of their own breathing, the drips falling lazily from the cavern roof, the gentle slip-slap of the waves outside. Here we go. Rowan looked up at a small hole which Ellen hadn't noticed before. It looked out at the dazzling blue sky above them. It seemed to be filling with light. That's the sun moving into the right spot. Ellen squinted at it. It hurt the back of her eyeballs. Don't look at that. Look at this. Rowan sounded elated. Ellen turned. The cave was filled with dancing lights. Lights bent and squiggled and waltzed and scurried across the walls. They wobbled and wibbled and shimmied. It's the effect of the sunlight on water. We can make our own lights if we get bowls of water and put them in the right places in the garden. It's magical, Ellen whispered. They watched the performance of lights for a few moments in silence. Captain Beaky took the opportunity to have a splash about in the sunlit pool. Will that be enough? Rowan wondered out loud. Perhaps we need to think of other stuff. What about CDs? Ellen remembered something her mother had shown her. Do we need music? Rowan sounded perplexed. No, I mean to make the lights. We could hang them from the trees so that the sun bounces off them. Oh, that's brilliant. I've got a few old ones I can bring. They make good decorations too, Ellen stated, feeling quite proud. Rowan looked at the photo. We can make other decorations, he began. String shells together to make garlands, Ellen interrupted. Collect sea glass to make colourful patterns, Rowan went on. What's sea glass? Ellen asked. It wasn't so difficult to admit she didn't know everything about islands now that they were friends. It's glass that's been washed into the sea and rubbed smooth by the waves. If we could think of a way to hang it up, we could get the light to shine through it, like a stained glass window. That would be amazing. And I think I have just the thing, Ellen squealed, hopping about with happiness. We need to get going. I'll get started gathering stuff for the decorations. And I'll get a message to Neris about flowers. We'll meet at the lanterns tomorrow morning and get it set up. Brilliant. I'll get rid of my grandmother. Even more brilliant, Ellen. In the whirly light of the cave, magic seemed so close you could almost reach out and take a bite of it. The treasure was almost in their grasp.